Alright, fellow hunters, time to take the next episode of the day, which is Sam Interrupted. At Glenwood Springs Psychiatric Hospital, Dr. Phil is talking with patient Susan about why she has stopped taking her medication. Susan tells him that the medication makes her sleep, and she can't sleep because the monster might kill her as it did her roommate Annie. The doctor says that it was a suicide and that there is no monster. It's just her way of coping with the tragic loss of Annie. He blames her schizophrenia for her claims that she can hear it at night and the walls, but Susan maintains that the monster is real. The doctor becomes frustrated with her and finally tells her, Susan, there's no such thing as monsters. Later that night, Susan is alone in her room and watches, terrified, as something unseen enters. A patient across the hall from her witnesses her screaming for help and finally being pulled away from the door from behind. When the nurse finally checks on her, she's dead on the floor, both of her wrists slit. Sam and Dean are now in Dr. Fuller's office, as Edward and Alex Van Halen. Dr. Fuller is almost suspicious about their reference to Dr. Babar, recalling that it's the name of the elephant from the children's books. Dean's deadpan serious reply is that he doesn't know about the name, as he doesn't have any elephant books. The boys then truthfully describe to the doctor in detail the current state of their lives in the world, including Sam's depression about his personal culpability in starting the apocalypse. Dean assures the doctor that Sam's not evil, though. It's just that he was addicted to demon blood and consequently was basically high at the time. As the doctor fixes Sam up, Dean adds that they can get back to traveling around the country hunting monsters. The doctor tells them to hold on a moment as he calls his assistant to cancel his lunch. The boys are admitted into the hospital and subjected to thorough examinations by Nurse Foreman. Dean attempts to groundless with her, calling her Nurse Ratchet and warning her not to try any soul-crushing authoritarian crap on him. Okie dokie, she replies with a calm smile. Sam and Dean meet in the day room later in their patient scrubs, and Dean anxiously scans the room, disbelieving they let Sam talk him into this case. Sam reminds them that Martin is a great hunter who saved their dad's hide countless times, so the least they could do for him is answer his call for help. Dean grumbles that he was a great hunter until Albuquerque. Sam manages to suggest to Dean that it might be good that they're there anyway, since he's unrecognized Dean's usual pattern of not dealing with tragedy on the scale of deaths of Ellen and Joe. This annoys Dean, and he responds that being in a psych hospital does not give Sam the right to head shrink him. When told that he just can't keep that stuff inside, Dean says as John says, "Watch me." Then they spot Martin sitting alone, staring out a window on the other side of the room. He's very happy to see them, even though he's remembering the old days when he could have worked this case alone without a problem. He doesn't know what has cultivated people there in the past 4 months, but he can feel in his gut that they were not suicides as doctors have claimed. Sam Dean asks if he's seen anything responsible. Martin tells him he hasn't, but a couple other patients have gotten glimpses. Dean asks if those witnesses are reliable, just as the one very enthusiastically dancing a waltz catches his eye. Martin has to consider that they wouldn't be reliable, but acknowledges Dean's obvious concern by telling them he knows that they think he's a bag of loose screws, but he wouldn't call them unless he really felt there was something sinister going on. Sam assures him that they believe him, and asks if he found any signs of attack on the victims' bodies. Martin stammers through his confession that he doesn't go around dead bodies anymore. Dr. Fuller approaches their table and extends an invitation to join the other patients for a group. As he rises to leave, the doctor stops Dean and says that he thinks it would be best if he and Sam attended separate group sessions because, frankly, the relationship seems dangerously codependent, and he feels a little time apart would do them some good. Dean watches Sam and Martin go away with the doctor. In group therapy, Ted, the patient who witnessed Susan being killed, is the first to respond by quickly raising as Sam and Dr. Fuller asks who wants to start the session. Dr. Offie sees him but waits for anyone else to speak up, as Ted continues to raise his hand higher. The doctor finally yields the floor to Ted, with a comment to calm down. Ted says that he would commonly like to discuss the monster hunting them. The doctor tells him they're not going to have that discussion again because it's not good for the group, which causes a cautious exchange of looks between Sam and Martin. Ted concurs that a monster eating their faces off would not be good for a group, and tries to tell them that he saw it when Susan was killed. But one of the group excites starts to ramble and says she saw it too. It was an alien with lobster claws. Ted is mortified and tells the woman to shut up and shouts over her that they are all going to die. The doctor shuts him down, insisting that there is no monster and tells him to behave or will call the orderlies. Ted clamps up nervously as Sam and Martin share knowing looks. While the group is in session, Dean's approached by Dr. Cartwright. Dean grins and says, "Lucky me," upon learning that he has such a pretty shrink. She feels just as lucky that her paranoid schizophrenic narcissistic personality disorder and religious psychosis. She sits down to ask him some questions, and Dean, instead of Dean's Hannibal Lecter impersonation, leads to a quid pro quo. She stresses Smart by asking how many hours he sleeps and how many drinks he has per week, in between answering 4 or 5 every couple of nights and somewhere in the mid-50s. He asks her about the recent suicides and tries to find out if she's noticed any cold spot and sulfur smells, which she hasn't. She also might ask those questions, and he explains to Former that it means demons or ghosts are about, and that he hunts them. He asks her to define long-term when she asks about the last time he was in such a past relationship. When she specifies 2 months, he quickly says never. He asks if her patients have reported seeing anything weird. She chuckles, considering where they are. Next she leans in and says, "So, let's talk about your father." Later, Dean is walking down the corridor looking dejected when Sam catches up with him. Sam notices something's off and asks if he's okay. He replies, "I just got raped, so no, I'm not okay." Sam tells him about Ted and they decide to meet back there later to go to talk to him. Dean's anxious to wrap up the case as quickly as possible and clear out of there. Right then he's approached by an attractive young woman who lays a very invasive kiss on him, and then says hi and tells him her name is Wendy. She slaps him on the butt and resumes walking down the hall as he watches, reconcerning his position about leaving so soon. Sam warns him to steer clear of Wendy. Right after lights out, the boys pick the locks on the doors and set out to talk to Ted. While on the way there, they hear screaming start. When they get to his door, all he sees is his feet frantically kicking the window as he screams. Sam tries to pick the lock, when Dean urges him to hurry up, he barks at him to back off. But down inside the room, Ted is hanging from a ceiling fixture. The boys sneak into the morgue to examine Ted's body. Sam discovers that the hole behind his ear goes all the way through his brain. To investigate further, he has to keep watch outside the door while he exits Ted's brain using a cranial saw. He finds that the brain is small and hard and appears to have been sucked dry. Dean hurries back in to tell him that someone's coming. He quickly presses the brain as they compose themselves just as Nurse Foreman opens the door. At loss for explanation of why they're in the morgue, Dean decides that dropping his pants, raising his hands to the air, and yelling, "Pudding!" is the way to go. The nurse only barely reacts and then shoots them out the door. Sam and Dean meet with Martin again to report that whatever they're dealing with surfaces victims' brains and then makes the deaths look like suicides. Martin identifies the probable culprit as a wraith, a creature that cracks through skulls to feed on brain juice. The boy's first question is, of course, how to kill it. Martin tells him that even a touch by silver will make the wraith's skins crackle. The bad news is it could be anyone among them because it can assume human form, and true visage can only be seen if reflected in a mirror. They realize that a psychiatric hospital is a perfect feeding ground for it because who's going to believe a mental patient when they say they saw a monster? Dr. Cartwright finds Dean leaning against the wall beneath the corner mirror of the nurse's station, watching people and asks what he's up to. He tells her he's hunting a wraith and that it could be anybody. She asks if it be her. He double checks the mirror and he deems her to be clean. She asks Dean why he has to be the one hunt monsters and not someone else. And a drunk that knows is dumb enough, thinks for a moment and answers that it's his job to save people's asses. She wants to know how many people he has to save. He simply answers, all of them. How can he save everyone? He tries to break the news to her that a damn biblical apocalypse is looming, and that if he doesn't stop it and save everyone, no one else will, and we'll all die. The doctor replies that's horrible. Dean thinks she means the apocalypse is horrible, but shocked with the magnitude of responsibility he feels. She wonders how every morning he finds the strength to get up from under this crushing weight of feeling like 6 billion people depend solely on him. Dean is still pondering the question when Dr. Fuller happens by and greets him. Jeffrey returns his greeting. He glances up and sees the doctor's decaying wraith face in the mirror as he passes. He watches him walk down the hall in stunned silence. Later, Dean and Martin are waiting in the hallway when Sam arrives after having raided 3 nurses' stations to find 3 silver-plated letter openers. Dean turns to see Wendy approaching and starts to wave her off, but she ignores him and completely hones in on Sam. She moves him against the wall and kisses him while stunned Dean and Martin watch. Afterward, she looks at Dean and says she wants Sam now because he's larger, and resumes walking down the hall. They get back to planning how they would take out Dr. Wraith, and Sam tells Martin they will take all 3 of them to get it done. Martin refuses and starts to walk away. And Sam calls out that they know about Albuquerque. Martin sighs and says they don't know the half of it. He tells him he used to think he was invincible, like the 2 of them, but now he's useless as a hunter. That's why he ended up checking himself into Hotel California. He says he'd give anything to help them now, but he's sorry that he simply can't. He hurries away. Dean have determined that Dr. Fuller is still in the building and separate to find him. Sam sees the doctor coming down the hall toward him and lies in wait. He brings a weapon down, but the doctor's from the striking distance and slices his arm. Dr. Fuller screams as Sam moves to strike again, but 2 orderlies arrive and grab him as he drops the weapon. He pummels both of them, putting one's head through a window, and while still going after the doctor. The doctor manages to get up and run, but Sam picks up the blade and tackles him. He holds him down and raises the blade to stab him, but Martin Pearson grabs his arm and makes him recognize that the doctor's wound is not reacting to the silver, which means he's not a wraith. Sam is horrified that he was about to kill him. Later, Dean breaks into Sam's room and finds that he's been heavily medicated. Sam sits Dean down and tells him slowly that the doctor wasn't a wraith. He's confused when he says he knows, and reasons that maybe Dean's seeing things because he's going crazy. Dean, of course, bristles at this, but Sam doesn't realize that he's been at least half crazy for a long time, for sure since he got back from hell and maybe even before that. Maybe, he says, he's feeling cracked and is now really for real crazy. Dean reiterates that he's not crazy and that he'll find the wraith. Sam tells him it's okay, because he's still his brother and he loves him. He gives Dean a boop on the nose and a big daisy smile. Dr. Cartwright startles Dean as he walks down the hall and mentions that he missed their session. He tells her he's been trying to save lives, maybe hers included. When she says it's not her life that she's worried about, he gets irritated and yells that he's fine, loud enough to alert an orderly standing nearby. She says even he doesn't really believe that he's okay, considering all the pressure and guilt he subjects himself to trying to save everyone. Then, her expression voice darkens and blurts, "Hell, these days, you can't save everybody, Dean," and turns to leave. Dean is struck and asks her what she said. She replies the truth, which is that he got Ellen Jo killed, couldn't play the ganking of Lucifer, couldn't keep Sam killing Lilith, and he broke the first seal. She continues to taunt him with his own words uttered, leaves the presence of only Sam and Bobby. She ends her up by telling him the world is going to burn, and there's nothing he can do about it. During the slashing, Dean's gone confused and fearful, to now very angry, Lily demands to know who she is and how she knows all those things. Lily interjects, telling him to settle down. Dean points to Cartwright and asks him who she is. They don't really tells him there's no one there. Dean looks back at her as she smiles at him mockingly and reveals that she's not real, only in his head, because he's going crazy. Dean is horrified and begins to stumble down the hall. Ruth reflects just every mirror every time he passes someone. He finally crumbles against the door and says he cannot get to open, whimpering. At Sam's request, Dr. Fuller visits him in his room, accompanied by an orderly. Sam apologizes profusely for attacking him, and explains that he thought he was a monster, but realizes that there is no such thing. The doctor accepts his apology, but says the monster is the least of his issues. He needs to deal with the anger that caused him to go after him like a man possessed. He gives Sam a second chance, allowing him to go to the day room with supervision. However, he warns Sam that if he has another outburst, he'll eventually be transferred to a facility that's equipped to handle violent patients. Sam goes to the day room with an orderly in tow and finds Dean there sitting alone, looking distressed. He stands up and tells Sam to his face that the demon blood was never the problem. It was always him, the black spot in his soul. The crowd in the day room starts to gather around, calling him loser, evil, and freak, shoving him and accusing him of being the reason that everyone is going to die. Sam is completely exasperated, and when someone actually punches him, he starts swinging in all directions. Dean has actually been sitting traumatized in the corners, watching Sam yelling and swinging at his imaginary attackers in the middle of the room. He watches as the orderlies haul him away, kicking and screaming. Dean just sits wide-eyed, trying to comprehend what's happening to them. Dean sneaks into Martin's room and startles him awake, almost getting stabbed by him in the process. Dean is frantic and tells him that Sam was on lockdown because he went crazy. Dean sees this as a good thing, though, because he's going crazy too, which means that crazy is the clue. Martin is very confused. Dean starts to explain, but stops and stares the other direction until Martin snaps his fingers in his face to get him back. Dean refocuses and explains after all the things they've done and seen, the fact that he and Sam actually went crazy on the same day is a clue that they were infected by something that's making them crazy. Martin says and gasps, "The monster," and Dean freaks out thinking it's in the room. He tries to calm down and work out what it could be. Maybe the ghost of his dad? Martin makes him focus on the wraith, and he works out that the wraith poisoned them by venom or saliva. He deduces it must be Wendy, who slumbered all over both him and Sam. He and Martin go to find her. On the way to Wendy's room, they hear screaming. When they get there, they find Nurse Form sitting over Wendy, who's lying on the bed with her wrist slashed. They see the nurse's wraith reflection in the mirror and realize that she's in the process of sucking Wendy's brains out. She attacks him and gets the best of them both, but Martin manages to slash her with a silver weapon as she runs away. As she escapes down the hall, she tells the orderlies that 2 patients attacked her in Wendy's room. In the room, Martin discovers that Wendy is still alive and yells at disoriented Dean to go after the wraith. Laura's rush in and Dean finally gets up and runs as Martin holds them off. Samson is confined to a padded room and his wrist is bound by wrist and ankle restraints. Nurse Furman enters and he screams at her to let him go. She responds that he's way too angry to be out in the world. Sam sees her reflection and remembers their very first contact during his intake examination. She teases that considering harmless Martin and him and his brother coming around talking tough about killing monsters, hunters didn't really live up to their rep. She runs her finger along his forehead and tastes it. Crazy brains, she says. They get soaked in dopamine and adrenaline and all sorts of hormones and chemicals, and they make them delicious. She produces a spike and prepares to stab Sam when Dean bursts in, still disoriented. She batters him for a while and gets dangerously close to skewering him, but he manages to grab her spike and break it. She recoils screaming and he grabs the litter opener and plunges into her chest. His vision realigns as he focuses on her lying dead. He wakes Sam restraints as the hospital's alarm sounds. The boys burst out the back door of the hospital, running at full throttle. When they reach the Impala, Sam pauses and takes on a worrisome look. Dean asks if he's okay, and he says no, because the wraith was right about his anger. He realizes now that he's blamed Dean, their dad, Ruby, Lilith, and now Lucifer, but it's really just him, angry all the time, and he doesn't know why. Dean basically tells him to take a leave of absence is not an option, so he needs to bury that, forget about it, and move on, because that's how they keep going, and it's how they don't end up like Martin. "Come on, man. Are you with me?" Dean asks. Sam finally says, "I'm with you." They get in the car and drive off into the night. Phooey. So anyway, let's take a look at some continuity from this episode. The Siswell scenes have taken place sometime after Abandon All Hope, in the previous episode and the last episode 2009 before the winter hiatus. The family remains. Dean goes by the alias Agent Babar in this episode, also the corresponding 11th episode of the respective season. Sam is referred to psychologist Fuller by Dr. Babar, possibly Bobby. And now let's take a look at some trivia from this episode. Referencing the 1999 movie Girl Interrupted, which Misha Collins appeared in, though Castiel is absent from this episode. In first meeting the Doctor, the children's book Babar is brought up. Dean mentions not having any elephant books. This is almost word for word dialogue from the 1985 comedy movie Fletch, starring Chevy Chase. Dean reveals in this episode that he has never had a romantic relationship last more than 2 months. Dr. Carr refers to Dean as paranoid schizophrenic with narcissistic personality disorder and religious psychosis. It's highly likely that Dean was actually diagnosed with a personality disorder, as it takes more than one psychological assessment to reach such a conclusion, and it is further discouraged to diagnose such a disorder during a psychotic episode. Since Dr. Cartwright was a hallucination of Dean's, it's likely Dean simply believes normal people will perceive him as a narcissist. Near the end of the episode, after Sam and Dean have escaped the facility, Sam states, Tom Cruise is right. Psychiatrists are crazy. This refers to Tom Cruise and his involvement with Scientology, an organization that strongly denounces the field of psychiatry and psychiatric medications. Tom Cruise's most notable disdain for psychiatry came during an interview on The Today Show on June 25, 2005. Ironically, Sam and Dean got into a mental hospital by telling their actual life story, which led the staff to believe they are insane. Dean estimated Greaser of his cloud drawings are original Gacy's, referencing infamous serial killer John Wayne Gacy's tendency to paint portraits of his clown alter ego, Pogo the Clown, while in prison. Dean referenced Gacy in Season 2 Simon Said, as well after first seeing Andrew Gallagher's van. In Season 14's Lebanon, Gacy would appear as a ghost. This is the first time we see Sam and Dean in mainly one set of clothing, not kind of their regular attire at the beginning of the episode. Dean attempts show defiance toward Nurse Foreman by calling her Nurse Ratched as she examines him. Nurse Ratched is named for the cruel-head nurse who antagonized psychiatric patients in the book/film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So overall, I think this episode is kind of interesting, and I'm really not a big fan of the race and how they suck brains out. I just don't like the things at all. So overall, I give Sam Interrupted 4 Impalas out of 5. Well, anyway, I'm not gonna be able to get the final episode done like pretty soon. So you guys are gonna have to wait until later on tonight. Later on tonight, as we take a look at the final episode of the day, which is gonna be Swap Meet. So yeah, that one's gonna come later on today. So yeah, or later on this evening. So yeah. So anyway, until then, carry on, my wayward sons and daughters.